You're listening to On the Job with PORAC, hosted by PORAC President Brian Marvel and Vice President Ben Therriault. On the Job with PORAC is your go-to podcast for insights into the challenges and opportunities facing law enforcement professionals here in California and across the nation. Our goal is to provide an inside look at these issues from the perspective of officers who risk their lives to protect and serve their communities.
Welcome to On the Job with PORAC, your inside track to the world of law enforcement. I'm Brian Marvel, President of PORAC, joined by my co-host, Ben Therriault, Vice President of PORAC. Today we're delving into Senate Bill 627, the deceptive no mask bill, or is actually no secret police bill is what it was dubbed. On this episode, we'll clear up the misinformation, talk about PORAC's advocacy on stopping the passage of the bill, and finish up with our commitment to fix it next year. If you're looking to stay ahead of the curve and understand how PORAC acts to protect your rights and advance public safety, you're in the right place. So why don't we get started and take a look at this Senate Bill 627. Really just no masks. It was supposed to be for federal law enforcement, for state law enforcement, and all the locals. And then at the very end, the state law enforcement folks were exempted. And then obviously the state of California doesn't have the right to regulate the federal agents because of the supremacy clause. So therefore, it just falls on us now.
Yeah, it's a big, beautiful bill for law enforcement, except everything about it is not true. And the only thing it's going to affect is your local law enforcement. Kind of something that we've unfortunately become pretty used to, I think, here in California.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Very deceptive bill. I think it gives false hope to the communities that they were trying to serve. And we're going to be back here in 6 months to a year, and we're going to say we told you so. Yeah. And we're going to be stuck with this stupid bill and trying to fix it.
I just think it's really indicative of, one, when Senator Wiener rolls these things out, he stands in the steps of City Hall of San Francisco, doesn't say anything, doesn't, no heads up, no warning about how this is going to affect law enforcement, yet proclaims to be, for pro-public safety, and basically calls the local law enforcement officers in the state, a bunch of names, and groups us in with immigration enforcement, which we have nothing to do with.
Yep, and I think that dovetails nicely into our first video clip. Let's take a look.
Right now, SB 627 is about providing life-saving protections to the millions of immigrants that are in this state that are under daily attack from this regime. And not just the undocumented immigrants.
Life-saving protections by not wearing a mask.
Yeah, and again, it's like the regime is something that we use for, countries around the world. It's the federal administration. They're elected. That's the decision-making they're doing. But that has nothing to do with law enforcement in California and what we're doing. And the big thing, the problem, I'm probably going to keep coming back to this, I've had all along with this bill, Brian, is that in months from now, what are you going to tell people when you've changed and done nothing? And what are you going to do that it really affects change for folks who are immigrants? You're nothing. You're not going to do anything, and you're going to have to go back and tell them that you basically lied and affected nothing when it came to federal agents and whether they wear masks or whether they wear pink tutus. You have no choice in the matter.
Yeah, it's almost like, they're running around like a new hope, we've got change, and then the reality is it's a false hope, and their state knows it. The Ledge Council, they know it, the supremacy clause. This absolutely not going to be able to regulate ICE or federal agents. And no sooner did the governor sign the bill that interim acting U.S. Attorney Bill Asaley in L.A. said, don't listen to it. And the Trump administration came out the following day and said this will have no effect or bearing on federal agents and the way that they're conducting their business. It's just it's really sad to see. because you have this gentleman out here saying that this is going to be some monumental change in the way stuff is being handled, and it's not.
And I think people are really tired of that. I know, the cops and the public safety professionals we represent around the state are definitely tired of, exhausted from the years of, elected officials, saying this is what we're doing. It's going to be this big change, and it's either the complete opposite. This is going to affect public safety in a good way, and it doesn't. It's the actual, converse. And then the same thing for this. It's like, this is going to change. I'll think, no, it's not. And you're lying to people, and people are just tired of it.
Yeah, and this bill was California versus Trump. It just trying to send a political message that, hey, we want to try to do something in California, but you know what? We're going to take it out on our local officers.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing they can do about this, but we want to pretend that we're going to do something with the federal folks. It's just bizarre that so many people went along with this charade and actually voted for it. And so we will definitely something that we have to work on for next year. But let's take a look at clip 2. This is talks about immigration protection. And they will claim that this bill applies to the federal law enforcement. Let's take a look at this bill.
So the bill says that it applies to federal law enforcement. And second, it is absolutely defensible in court.
It's defensible in court?
Yeah. So, the funny part is he's taking an opinion by Dean Chemerinsky out of Berkeley Law School. And it was just a sliver of a piece, and the case that the dean cited actually is non-published, so therefore can't be cited in other cases, is my understanding of it. There was a law professor at UC Davis who actually wrote a really good piece on saying how California does not have the ability to enforce this. So obviously, when it comes to legal stuff, everybody's got an opinion.
Sure.
Courts will have to defend it or define the opinions. But the reality is, again, here you have Senator Wiener, who has consistently stated that this will be enforceable on the federal agents, which we disagree with.
And all the conventional wisdom says it's not going to. It'll get struck down. And then, like you said earlier, what's going to be left? Oh, well, surprise, it'll just be, local cops and county sheriff's deputies, and everybody else, above that is not affected because we carved out state law enforcement and the CHP for whatever reason. I just think, again, it just highlights the hypocrisy that's in play.
Yeah, and the courts have consistently over the years, and they refer back to a case from 1890 that talks about the supremacy clause. The courts have consistently ruled against states from regulating the feds in the way that states can regulate their operations. And I sort of write about it in my article about, it'd be like the state saying, because we're so green out here, it's like everything's got to be green. It'd be like telling the Navy they have to use electric motors on their boats. We don't have that ability to do that. We don't have the ability to tell the FBI or the Secret Service what they can and can't wear. So why would we have the ability to tell ICE and HSI that they can't wear masks in the enforcement of their jobs?
That's not how it works. It's kind of like a lot of cities, especially in California, they do like non-binding resolutions about things that go around the world, and nobody cares because it has no applicability to them. Right. It doesn't work.
So again, we're the whipping boys, whipping kids of the legislature, trying to send a message to the administration. Well, let's go. Let's dive into this clip, and this is about masks specifically. And again, I recommend if you're in the law enforcement profession to actually watch the floor debate, then watch the concurrence hearing to get a better understanding of where some of these elected individuals are coming from when it comes to discussing this. It's actually quite astounding to hear some of the comments from these elected folks in office who they can't claim that they weren't told, because I think we've met in floor alerts, emails, letters, letting them know that this will have no effect on the feds, but yet they continue to go down this path. And this is bigger than PORAC, this is bigger than our law enforcement officers in California. And it's like, I know, but I understand the argument about being bigger than,
Sure.
but the reality is, and we're probably going to harp on this whole show, that this will have zero effect on the feds.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like that's great. It's bigger than everything, but it doesn't accomplish anything. And so, what the end result is still a sum zero. So again, who cares? It's not accomplishing anything. And people are just tired. They're tired of that, and I think they're just fed up. Let's see the clip.
Yeah, let's take a look at the clip.
Local police, like ICE agents, should not be wearing ski masks. They shouldn't. And to not be covered by this bill, that's what you have to do. Just don't wear a ski mask.
The irony is 5 years ago, working the street during COVID and stuff, if we didn't have a mask on, myself and my colleagues, damn near get fired.
Yeah.
And now here we are 5 years later, and it's like, oh, you can't wear a ski mask. First of all, they're not ski masks, dude. That's not what they're not. That's not what they are. I mean, there's all types of baklava and all types of different things, but
Yeah.
the ski mask thing cracks me up.
Well, and the other part is he's like, most local law enforcement don't wear masks at all.
No.
But yet it's creating a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. There are already rules on the books that we have to identify ourselves with a badge and name, agency.
Yeah.
And, they're just doubling down. And in addition, they're now making it a crime
Yeah.
with a
Of course.
compensation penalty on top of it. And you lose all of your immunity if you wear a mask in good faith and you violate this law. You now are on the hook for up to $10,000 or more for something that we don't normally wear.
Sure. Because this is what the most important thing in our profession is right now, is to criminalize cops wearing masks
Yeah. And the
that we
way
don't really wear, like you said. Like
Yeah.
this is not a normal thing.
and in the way it's written, so if you're a motor cop, you
Yeah.
literally have to take your helmet off when you get off your bike to approach a car,
Yeah.
because the way it's written, you can only wear the helmet
You're
while
right.
utilizing the bike.
No, you're out of pocket.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's the best. That's the best example. Trying when at least when members of the Assembly and Senate were listening and trying to, oh, okay, I get it. Until they got overwhelmed by the emotional argument instead of the logical thought process.
Absolutely.
That was easy to share for people's understanding. And yeah, I mean, why? Again, like you're going to put these cops at risk out there because now I got to take my helmet off. You're out there amongst traffic. No common sense.
I know. And sunglasses, can't wear sunglasses. It's such a sloppy bill. It was written by people who have zero concept or notion of what it's like to be a peace officer, to actually work on the streets or do the job. And when we were advocating to make sure this bill didn't get out, we're literally telling them, this is just a bad bill. Why don't we sit down? It was so hastily put together.
Yeah.
This is about public safety. You heard the first guy. This is going to be a monumental change, and it's going to create safety for the immigrant community in California. But if it's about public safety, then why were the state officers exempted from this, and it only affects the local peace officers?
Well, this is what I would call look at me legislation, where I'm not trying to actually solve a problem. It's just like, hey, look at me, look what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Not solving anything, creating some problems, not solving anything. But yeah, and do I care about safety and protective equipment? Nah, not at all, because you're intertwining all these things, and you don't. There's nothing being paid attention to. In fact, of how that's going to affect to the cop on the street, and that's what really matters to us. And it should matter to elected officials, and it just doesn't. It's so hard to get it to resonate for folks.
Yeah, and if one of your elected officials actually voted for this, I would recommend that you try to give them a call and talk to them.
Yeah.
And just be like, hey, this bill is it's all bad.
Yeah.
It did nothing. It does nothing.
Does nothing. Needs to be fixed.
Needs to be
What
fixed.
are you doing
Yep.
to get it fixed?
Absolutely.
Because I see you voted for this, and I see you voted for nonsense, and what I would call this bill is just overall hot garbage. And what are you doing to fix it?
Well, let's go back to the immunity piece because there were some comments made specifically on the immunities. And let's take a look at clip 4.
If an officer commits a tort while covering their face and willfully and knowingly violating the law, then they are liable and they are not able to raise immunities.
Yeah, so basically Senator Weiner is saying that you'll lose immunity if you break this law or act in bad faith.
Yeah, that's what cops need more of is, more reasons to be sued for nothing. Again, the next day, like you said, after all this was passed, feds came out and said like, okay,
Yeah.
do your best.
They got the one finger salute.
Yep.
Sometimes we get those. So this will now create a new criminal exposure for performing your regular duties, and eliminates the immunities on that. Fundamentally, that is just, it's so wrong on so many levels.
Yeah.
Because my feelings on that is, okay, we've got this, they've created this special case now where we're just going to specifically remove the immunity for this face masking. And we've seen over the last 8 to 10 years is our legislature here is so reactionary, everything's special. So today it's masks, tomorrow it could be chasing a felon.
Yeah.
Oh, you probably shouldn't have chased them because you chased them and they got hurt or somebody else got. We're going to remove your immunity because this is an emergency and we need to.
You should have known that they might have tripped and fallen.
Yeah.
Never mind all the 20 felonies they just committed.
Yeah.
But that's really important here. And that's what this does. I mean, it just strips away. It's that nose under the tent stripping away the limitations on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just that's where I wish more of the electeds would have came and said, hey, you know what, I understand the mask argument and we want to push back against the administration and let's have that conversation. They can have that. But now you're diving into, hey, you know what? Not only do we want to have this argument and philosophical disagreements with the administration, we're going to punish our local officers because this won't affect the feds, but now we're going to create this, there's already a cottage industry of people that sue peace officers.
Yeah.
Now they've just opened the door wide open to be like, oh, well, this is the way to go to personally punish officers that are acting in good faith over this mask bill because we are going to see that.
Yeah.
That is without a doubt you're going to see that because that's what those groups of people do. They want to sue law enforcement officers. They want to get rid of the qualified immunity because they feel that we shouldn't get any protections in the performance of our job when we're acting in good faith. And now we have a legislature and a governor who unfortunately signed it who have now said it's okay, go ahead and sue these individuals because we're upset with the Trump administration and we can't do anything about it. Yeah. It's just, it's like the stepkids in a divorce, unfortunately.
We've been dealing with this for a while now, right? During the first Trump administration now. And, they want to if that's what the elected officials want to do, they want to get into it with the feds. That's what they want to do. Elections have consequences, et cetera. But at the same time, to go hand in hand and just try again, all you're doing is screwing over local public safety officers. That's it. Yep. That's your only accomplishment. Yeah. And how much more is that? How much more do people need to hear and see that? Again, it's mind blowing on how much on just how logical things that get put forward to folks, and it just goes right past them because they just were so obsessed with taking on the administration, and that's fine. We'll do so in a way that doesn't screw over your local public safety folks. It can be done.
And it was. We did. SB 805. We worked with the senator on the bill to craft that allowed the agencies to craft policies for their local jurisdiction and the way that they were operating versus this blanket policy from the state saying you need to do X, Y, and Z. And if you don't, we're going to take away your immunity and we're going to allow your individual officers.
Legitimate issues over ID, and all that. Okay, no problem. We don't want people out there pretending to be cops that are not, blah, blah.
100%. You bet. Well, let's take another clip on the immunity because this is probably the biggest concern that all of us have in the profession. Losing a protection for good faith mistakes.
Intentional, reckless violations of the law that aren't reasonable are not protected by immunity currently.
Yeah, she's absolutely right. That's the problem about when we had this huge discussion over the last several years on qualified immunity. People thought we got it for everything, but if it's a criminal issue, nobody gets qualified immunity at all. But this is beyond that. This is
No, I mean, even the response I would have in police parlance would be, "Well, no shit, Sherlock."
Yeah.
That's how that works. But I mean, that's not what this is, though. Well, duh. I mean, if you can't just go, wandering around doing your police job and just do gross negligence and expect to be covered. But nobody does. That's not how immunity works for anybody.
Yeah.
But that's not what this is. This is, you're putting people in a situation, like, again, back to the example with the traffic cop.
Yeah.
I got to think about, you got all these things going on. You got traffic going by. Now I have to think about taking off my stupid helmet, putting it to the side, so I don't get, jammed up for that. All because, you're upset at the administration about something that you can't control.
Yeah. And again, just SB 627 clearly targets officers that are doing stuff in good faith. And, I recommend that you got to protect yourself out there. And until the policies are written, which is a whole other issue, is because the bill goes into effect on January. Policies don't have to be done until July, but you have this 6-month period where without any policies, you're basically open to all of this because the policy hasn't been written. It's just I don't know. I just think it's a travesty.
I think we're going to see this on this next clip, but this kind of like word salad thing with the policy, and the policies are not going to protect you when the law supersedes the policy. So what is that? It doesn't really make sense. Like how is that going to really work?
Yeah.
Because again, if someone sues you, it's not going to matter what your policy is because they're going to be like, this isn't something that you're allowed to do, cop A, B, C, whatever.
Yep.
It doesn't add up.
And here's clip 6, which actually talks specifically about that. We're going to talk a little bit more about that gap in coverage for those 6 months. Let's take a look at clip 6.
If an officer works for an agency that has a compliant policy in place, then the officer is not subject to criminal liability.
Well, and what does that mean, genius? Like, what is a compliant policy? Like, what does that explain somewhere? Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so. That's not in the bill.
Yeah, it's super ambiguous,
Yeah.
and it's just going to create a lot of problems. And really, we have that 6-month overlay, which we're really going to have to work super hard next year to try to get some amendments and fix this bill so it doesn't open up the liability to our members that are just trying to do their job. And like you said earlier, I don't know anybody that's doing immigration enforcement at the local level.
Nobody. SB 54 is in place, been for many, many years now.
Yep.
It's limited circumstances. This is all some political grandstanding. I love this freeze frame here too because it's like, I wish I could put little thought bubbles above it. Put some emojis in there. It's just not. That's what it really is. It's just a grandstanding bill.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's grandstanding on our heads.
Yep. Well, let's switch from the actual bill stuff. Let's talk a little bit about the advocacy work. Yeah. Obviously, Randy worked really hard. We coordinated with the chiefs and the sheriffs to try to do what we could to get this bill stopped.
We reached out to association leaders too.
Yep, absolutely.
A lot of board of directors, association leaders that were called.
Yep.
Key districts.
Yeah.
I know you made calls. I made calls. I think that was, and things were going really well and chugging along.
Yes.
But ultimately, and which is good. It shows the power of what we do and how that works out, how this organization is so successful. But
we definitely learned some lessons off of this bill on moving forward. I think in the future how we're going to handle some critical legislation. Because you're right. I know you were at the Capitol. You worked the Capitol a couple days. I worked on that Friday and Saturday. We made calls. had chiefs making calls. We even had district attorneys making calls for us to help us out. The reality is that, like you said, what PORAC's ability is to be able to like have a phone tree and be able to get folks working in certain parts of the state, being like, hey, we need some assistance on here. Can you call these folks to call their elected officials?
I've always kind of looked at like our, like our time in the military. It's our organization works like a very good force multiplier, and the reach out ability is really good. And as long as folks have been doing what they're supposed to do in their neck of the woods, and building relationships with folks, it's extremely helpful, and it makes everything changes and adapting to these types of things so much more viable on the fly.
Well, and that all goes back to what I really push out. We need more cops in elected office because obviously they're a caucus. They're having meetings behind closed doors, a caucus. They're having meetings on the floor, which nobody's allowed with the exception of the electeds and the folks that work the staff there and the media. To have somebody in law enforcement like a Tom Lackey or a Juan Alanis to be able to be down there and be like, this is just bad. Here's a reason why.
Yeah.
I've worked the streets. This is why this is a bad bill.
Even a spouse like Stephanie DeWint, like someone who's like, hey, this is why, here's the issue on this.
Yeah.
Or if you've done a really good job and you've like built a solid relationship, and I don't mean like, hey, we went to some of your fundraisers and stuff. I mean like you built over time. Yeah. If you really put in some elbow grease on a relationship, where you can have like very blunt and very straight up conversations about how these things are going to affect us, that pays dividends down the road.
Yeah, and you see it like. If you build strong relationships when they're down at a city council level or a school board, because ultimately the vast majority of those folks want to move up, and they wind up coming up to the state, and you can see that in relationships down the road when they're in leadership positions on the state level, either in the Senate or the Assembly.
Think about what the relationship you had with Tony Atkins. If it hadn't been for your long-term relationship with Tony Atkins, I think our profession would have been, we'd be upside down right now.
Yeah, and it's critical. And, that was one of the things I think worked in our favor in trying to get the messaging out on this. Now, we didn't win the day. I think a lot has to do with that Supreme Court ruling that came out the day this bill went to the Assembly floor, or the day before it went to the Assembly floor. That really hurt us. I think if that opinion wouldn't have come out until later, we may have had some success.
I agree with that assessment.
In stopping it. But we really we took a bunch of shots. I mean, we really hammered away on the Assembly. And then when it passed the Assembly, it had to go to concurrence.
Yeah.
We worked really hard on concurrence with the committee members and getting our voice out there. We did the digital activation portal in less than 24 hours. I mean, we almost got over 1,000 letters, phone calls, great letters, people talking, and then obviously, trying to reach out to the governor's office and talk to the governor about, why this is a bad.
That was a well-mounted campaign as well.
Yeah.
Again, I think it just falls back to if folks had not gotten to, let their emotions overtake logic. Yeah. With that Supreme Court case decision, I think that's a totally different, and I get the why, but ultimately, again, it's just like, let me bypass my logic part of my brain, and I'm just going to go straight into my emotions instead of, I think it's a totally different return instead of what's happened. But the ability to stand up everything, and I think it speaks volumes to, what our capabilities are and what they can even be further up down the line.
And that's why, we really push to get more folks to join as an organization, be with PORAC. Let's be one voice here in Sacramento where we can say we're all a law enforcement in the state. So obviously now moving forward, it's a 2-year, this is the first year, the 2-year session's over. We're going to be 100% committed to trying to fix this bill and make amendments to it, common sense amendments. We're not asking for unreasonable stuff here, but what we're asking for is that you create a policy that doesn't punish officers for good faith mistakes,
sure.
And you don't lie and deceive a community that there somehow now going to be some special protection because somebody's not wearing a mask at the federal. It's just
because again, 6 months from now, a year from now, what are you going to tell folks in immigrant communities?
Yeah.
That because people are just tired of elected officials think people are stupid. Yeah. They're not.
Yeah.
And they're going to be out there. Hey, how come this ICE agent has a mask? I thought you guys solved this problem.
Absolutely.
Well, oh, I'm sorry. We lied to you.
Yeah.
We didn't do anything. We screwed over some local cops. That's it.
Yeah.
And that's that's the bottom line. And that's the problem.
And yeah, we'll be able to point to this podcast. Hey, we told you so.
Told you. Yeah.
We'll do a "We Told You So" podcast in 6 months.
And to your thing on advocacy, like going forward on the fixing, I think, what we're going to see, and I think is, and what I would encourage folks to do is, like, as we're going forward, asking, hey, help us out on when we're gonna work to get this fixed. Hold the people accountable too.
Yeah.
When you're like, hey, you want me to come to your fundraiser? Or you want public safety support? Because that's, now we're back into a phase where that's important to people who are trying to get elected. Where were you at on this? Oh, I see you voted yes.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you, please, pretty please, with sugar on top, tell me why.
Yeah.
Why you do that, and don't tell me it's like, oh well, I just feel we had to do something like that. That could be a myriad of things in Sacramento. It's like, well, I feel like I should have a yacht, but I don't.
Yeah.
So it's just a lot of those things need to get explained. I think part of the advocacy piece going forward that will be really to like hold people accountable, and then like, what are you going to do now that you made a bad decision? Because it's going to show that you made a bad decision. How are you going to help us fix it so you're not screwing over public safety?
Yeah. And really, if they really wanted to deal with the masking issue on the federal level, it would have been better to actually have gone to the feds, their Congress members, or we have 2 senators to take a look at what can we do from their end. But also, on the other side, California has never gone on record to say, you know what, we want to protect these federal officers from the potential doxing that may happen, the threats that they're receiving. You don't hear any of that.
No.
It's all we got to strip off your mask. We want to know who you are. All the stupid stuff that goes along with somebody wearing a mask doing enforcement. There's nothing on the back end saying, hey, you know what? We recognize that your job that you're doing is there's danger to it. There's people that don't like you and want to hurt you and your family, and in a variety of ways. We're gonna, as our state of California, we're going to make sure that you're protected. You never hear any of that.
No.
It's all about exposing somebody to that type of jeopardy. But there's never anything on the back end to say, like, we're going to make sure that you're protected and your family's safe so you can live peacefully in California. They don't care about that.
No, it's lip service at best. And I think we even saw the beginnings of that during like 1421 and stuff, like going forward. Like, oh, this is lip service. Oh, well, yeah, we don't want that. Well, of course, but what are you doing about it?
Yeah.
Again, just like, this whole bill and a lot of these things in general, it's just like, from my favorite Western movie, the Outlaw Josie Wales, don't piss on my back and tell me it's raining.
Yeah.
Because that's where those kind of things come from.
Yep.
It's lip service. It's, oh, yeah, we're doing, pat on the head.
Yeah.
That's it. And, there needs to be some holding to account on that. And I think that's what we're going to have to start to do.
I agree. Well, I think that brings us to a close of another episode of On the Job with PORAC. Sincere thanks to all the supporters and coalition members who helped us to fight against the passage of SB 627. Although we lost the day, we've not given up, and we'll be back stronger and better next year to amend this grossly deceptive bill. Don't forget to check the show notes for additional resources and updates mentioned in the show, including links to more information at porac.org. Help us reach more listeners by liking, subscribing, and sharing this podcast with your colleagues and community. Your voice and participation make a difference. Stay informed about the policies shaping our profession. Your voice matters in this fight. This is Brian Marvel with Ben Therriault signing off. Until next time, keep fighting the good fight and stay safe out there on the job with PORAC.